Hello folks, and welcome back to the channel. This is the second part of the lithium ion and converter installation. This is going to be about the DC to DC battery charger. This is a Vevor unit, 20 amp. I chose this unit because I didn't want to overtax the alternator in the tow vehicle, and also you got to have this to protect the alternator in the tow vehicle. So we're going to be installing this. There's several ways that this could be mounted. I think they suggest that it's mounted onto the tow vehicle. We're not going to do that. I only have the one camper, and it's going to be okay if it's in here. I think they wanted it close to the vehicle that's supplying the power, but at this case, it's not really going to matter. So we're going to mount it inside behind the electrical center here. We're going to try to get it. There's some area back in here. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the electrical center. And we're going to try to mount it back in this area behind this. There's an area there. So it came with some fuses and some wire connectors. And we got it's pretty basic. There's some dip switches over here. It came with an instruction manual that was pretty good. One thing that it does require is right here is for a DC input. So without that connected, the charger will not turn on. So when it sees, like, from the tow vehicle, like an ignition input, like when you turn your key on, it'll activate the charger. So it's not on when the tow vehicle is not connected to the truck. So what I'm going to try to do, there's a couple ways to do this without having another wire run from the vehicle to the camper. So I'm going to use a test light. We're going to find the wire from the trailer plug that comes into the electrical center, and it supplies the power to the fuse block for the 12 volt side. And we're going to disconnect that from the electrical center. So that will render, that wire will be dead. So whenever the converter's on or the truck is plugged in, that wire that runs to that plug is live. And I'll show you, we're going to test that in a little bit. And we're going to remove that wire from the electrical center. And my plan is to hook that wire, it'll go here, but we'll have a loop connection, which will be a smaller gauge wire, into the DC input. So when you plug the truck in, that wire will become live and will energize this port and turn the charger on. That's the theory. The other backup idea is I picked up this toggle switch at Lowe's, and if we can't get it to work the way that I'm hoping, it's where I don't have to throw any switches or anything, we'll have this switch mounted somewhere inside the camper, and we'll have an off position and then like a tow charge mode, which will be on. So we're going to get started here with this in a little bit, and hopefully you guys will find this useful and get your vehicle ready for the lithium ion. I just want to point out before I forget, the reason for installing this is if you don't install something like this to limit the current flow to the lithium ion batteries. Now, if you watch the other video, you're going to see that we're running two 100 amp hour batteries, and together they could pull some current in. So depending on the size of your alternator or the type of tow vehicle you're using, it can divert a lot of power back here to the camper. And you really don't want to do that because you could damage, the wiring. You could damage the alternator on your vehicle. So what this is going to do is limit the current going to the batteries to 20 amps, which is, I have a larger alternator in my truck, so this 20 amps is going to be nothing to it. So we'll have this in there to protect the alternator in the truck. That's the main purpose of this. Okay, so we're going to get started in here by removing this panel. We've got two screws here. Okay, so here's the converter that we installed in part 1. All right, but this time we're going to go ahead and take the electrical center all the way out. Okay, so I do have this loose now. I just want to tell you that whenever you're working on this stuff, make sure that you do shut off the power. You do not want to be sticking your hands in here with, you know, shore power, your generator running, converters, all that other good stuff. So you just make sure that all the power is shut off. We took the 4 screws out, and the panel just pulls out like that. As you can see, we've got a bunch of wires in here. So most of the 12-volt stuff is right here. So we got to figure out which one of these wires is going to the plug for the tow vehicle. So we're going to go around and test that, and we're going to put a jumper pack on that plug and energize it after we determine which one it is. So once that's done, I'll show you how to do that in the lead that I made and how to test and find it. Okay, I was doing some preliminary checking here, and this is once again, this is a 2019 Forrest River Greywolf 26RR. So there is an electrical box, which is kind of strange. It's like a household electrical box that you would see in a wall for like a two switch, like for lights and stuff like that. Under the front first cross member, right behind the A-frame, and the trailer harness goes up into that box. So I went in there and I opened the box up, and I'll get a video of it here in a minute, but the wire from the truck, that is the feed wire for the camper for the 12 volts, goes through that box and then goes to a circuit breaker mounted onto that front cross member as well. So, and then from there, it's this larger battery cable right here, this one right here, that goes through the floor right here. And that runs up to the circuit breaker and then up into our electrical center. I still want to have this automatic. I'm trying my best not to have to use that switch. You know, you can forget or whatever, you know, you leave it on, it kills the batteries or whatever. So I still want to try to use this so where it turns on when I plug the truck in. So the wire that comes from the harness to the electrical center up front and then into that circuit breaker, that's the end of it. That's where it stops. It really has no purpose but to charge the battery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this 10 gauge wire. I've stuffed it down this hole. There's a hole right here with the positive battery cable that goes through the floor. My concern was that it was under the belly pan of the camper, that fiber pan and I wouldn't be able to get to it because I'm definitely not going to cut that. So I stuffed the wire down through the hole and went around the other side of the camper, and there's nothing there. It just went straight down. So I was like, all right, this is going to work. So what we're going to do is I've run the wire, the 10 gauge wire, down through here, and we're going to run it along the frame. We're going to put it in the conduit, which I have that as well. And we're going to run it up to that electrical center. We're going to disconnect it from the circuit breaker and then plug this wire into there. Now, the way my truck is wired, which I'm not going to get into all that, but the truck has a circuit breaker already on that wire, so it doesn't need two. So we're going to go ahead and plug this into that wire in the front, and I'll show you everything I'm talking about when I go around to the front of this camper. I'm going to take this wire and run it along the frame and cable tie it to the frame, secure inside a conduit so it can't rub. So that's what I'm going to do. So what'll happen is this wire will be dead until plugged into the truck. So when it gets plugged into the truck, it'll have 12 volts from the truck. And now this wire will plug from here, from the truck, to the input side of the DC to DC charger. And also I'll have my loop from the input to the DC input connection, which would be like the ignition. And that'll turn it on. So that's what we're going to try to do. I'll get the video from the front as soon as I get around there. Okay, here we are under the camper. So that's the axle right there. That's the front tire. And we come straight back in. You'll see there's the red wire, the battery wire. And right up there, you'll see there's my, I'll see if I can wiggle it. That's the brown wire, the 10 gauge wire right there. And it came right through the floor, right through that grommet. So we're going to run the wire. I got a conduit. We're going to put it in a conduit, and we're going to cable tie it up onto the frame. And we're going to run it all the way up to the front. And I will show you where it will plug into the front as soon as I get around there. All right, so we've moved to the front of the camper. This is part of the A-frame right here, and then this is the frame. We get back over here. It's kind of close here. It's low to the ground. There's that box I was telling you about. And this is the trailer harness right here. Comes around the horn here and comes into this box. And then the wires come out of the box back into the camper. So it's going to be your tail lights, stuff to that effect. But there is the, let's see if I can get, there it is. This is the other circuit breaker. And this heavy black wire that runs to the inside the box right here, that is the power wire from the trailer harness to the inside of the camper into the battery cable. So what we're going to do, I've run the other wire along the frame. It's laying here next to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the wire that comes directly from the trailer plug right here. And we're going to remove it from this circuit breaker. I just want to reiterate again that make positively sure that your batteries are disconnected and your shore power generator 110 is disconnected from the camper before you mess with any of this. I wanted to point out too, because in the first video with the lithium-ion batteries, I was talking about, I didn't go into great detail, but I was talking about the on-off switch on the batteries that I had put. You want to make sure that when you, if you do something like that, or if you have a cutoff, that when you're towing, that switch is in the on position. And not just for charging the batteries, because most of these campers, trailers, you know, with tandem axles and electric brakes, the emergency brake part of it, when the breakaway, if the camper does break away from the tow vehicle, it pulls a pin on the switch, which engages the electric trailer brakes. That power comes from, on this particular camper, that power comes from those batteries. If those batteries are in the off position or disconnected from the camper or dead, you're going to have a problem because the brakes will come on if you do have a breakaway situation. Some other like utility trailers have like a small motorcycle battery or an AGM battery, something to that effect, that you have to test, you know, frequently and replace as needed. But this one does use the camper battery, so you want to make sure that switch is in the on position. That's enough about that. So I got to get some tools, and we're going to remove this and make our connection. Okay, so I talked about it earlier, and I didn't mean to skip over it. This is the harness here. That, of course, the 7-way round that plugs into your tow vehicle. Up here, we have a ground. On this one, I put that ground there. It's for the tongue jack. So I'm going to go ahead and hook my test light up to that. Now I did turn the 12 volts back on, so I can show you this test. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the 7-way round. We're going to take our test light and we're going to start. Now you don't want to stick your light in between these prongs. You don't want to spread them apart. So what we're looking for is the 12 volts. There it is right there. You can see the light lit up. So there's nothing else hooked to it. So the other ones are going to be like your brakes, your turn signals, and there's even a provision in here for reverse lights, which this camper doesn't have. So they're not wired up. Neither is the tow vehicle. It's not wired up for the reverse lights. So we have 12 volts here. We can identify that as here's the location hump right here for the plug, and it's looking at it. It's right to the right of that. So that's my 12 volts. So what I'm going to do is I will turn the 12 volts off again, go into the camper, disconnect the circuit breaker, and I'll come back here and I'll test this to make sure. I'll turn the 12 volts back on and make sure that this circuit is in fact dead. So what that'll do is this circuit will be dead to the DC charger until we plug it into the tow vehicle. So once it's plugged into the tow vehicle, 12 volts will be present on this line again through the wire we just ran up to the DC converter. And when we put that loop in there, in theory, it should turn on the charger. So I'm going to go back and turn the 12 volts off and disconnect that wire and then make my connection with the new wire. I'm sorry for the close-ups here, but all right, so it's kind of tight under here. So here's the, we've disconnected the wire that runs back up to this electrical box right here. And that's the wire that runs to the trailer harness. So we're going to go ahead. We have the 12 volts off right now. We're going to go ahead and tighten this up. And you don't want to over tighten this because it is mounted like a plastic material for that circuit breaker. So if you do over tighten it, you will crack it and ruin it. So it has to be tight, snug, but you don't want to make it, you don't want to use like a ratchet on it with a breaker bar or something like that, because you will definitely crack it. So right now the 12 volts is off. And there we go, we have that tight. So like I said too, this one here that runs through this box, connects to the trailer harness. And my truck has a circuit breaker that I installed on the truck side, so there's no need for me to have this in line for what I'm doing now. And I have the other wire right here that I did put in the, I did put it in the conduit. So we're going to make a connection here. So for right now that this is disconnected, I'm going to go back around and turn the 12 volts on, and we're going to check that plug, and there should be no 12 volts present. We're going to check that to make sure that we did disconnect the right wire. I'm pretty sure I did, but we're going to make that 100%. All right, so here we are back at the front of the camper. And here's our 7-way round. And there is the alignment bus right there. And just to the right of that, like we said, is the 12 volt. And like I said, do not stick it right in the middle. Do not try to pry those. I try to, like, I don't know if you can see it here. I try to go in on the, I'm sorry about that. Try to go on the back side of that connector, and it'll push it up. And because you don't want to spread those terminals. So there you go. The light is not on, and the 12 volts is on. So we have broken the circuit to the trailer, to the tow vehicle and the trailer plug of the 12 volts. So that's what we wanted. So now we'll make the other connection, and then we'll start wiring in our DC charger. Okay, so we're back in the camper, and we have run the wire, which is right here, and comes up through the floor like where I had said originally. We've run it up to the frontal to the front of the trailer harness, and we have that all connected and all strapped down along the frame. So now we're going to try to make the connections inside here. So we do have, this is the ground bar right here, and we do have a couple empty ones here, so I'm probably going to use this one right here in the middle, which is right there, for the ground for the DC charger. And I'm going to try to mount it over here to the left a little bit. We'll see. I'm going to make the ground cable now. I'll put the one end in here, and I think what I'm going to do is, instead of running two separate grounds, I'm going to just link the two grounds together. It's the same. It doesn't matter if it's two separate wires or not. So we'll have the wire from the ground from this side to that side to the ground bar. So, I'm sorry, from this side of the ground, well, that would be the ground on this side, and then the ground on this side, and we will loop them together and then down to the ground block. Trying to get a video of this, so we get that in the ground block there. Tighten the screw up, and that's the wire right there, the black wire that I'm running to the charger. You can see it in there inside the ground bar, and I'm trying to run it alongside of the positive wire as well, so I can link it back to where I'm going to mount the charger. Okay, so there's a small block of wood right here for a pass-through from the heater. So I want to maybe see if I can locate another piece of wood about that size. I want to keep the DC charger on this side, and we will get it elevated to that level and then screw it to this block of wood. So that's the plan. I'm gonna go see if I can find another piece of wood that size, and we'll start to install it. Okay, so we've crimped the wire from, this is the one that goes to the trailer harness, so this is going to be our input. And I've doubled the wire up. I have a red wire in here, which is going to go to our ignition input on the other side here. So I'm going to make those connections. This is going on the inside, so I just want to show you there's a little plastic cover protector. It just pulls off. Take that off, and then the wire itself will slide in here like so, and then you'll tighten this screw up right here, and then we're gonna leave the cover off right now because we're gonna make our ground connection and the ground loop. So once we get that done, we'll put the covers back on. Okay, so we're looking at the side of the unit here. This is the wire that we're using from the trailer plug for the loop, which is hooked into the input side with the wire that runs to the trailer harness. And then this is our loop wire. And just simply, I always twist them together. You saw that in the first video. Always twist the strands. It makes life a lot easier sticking it in here. So I had to back this screw out a little bit, and you stick this in down into the metal part, and just give it a little shove in there, and then tighten the screw. And you know, it's a good connection. You can almost lift the unit by it, so we know it's in there good. Okay, so when I was wiring this up, I had a different idea. So this is the output side of the Vevor, and I ran it up right through here and through an access hole in the back of this electrical center, and then I ran it into the fuse block right here. So I had an empty one here, so I've hooked it in there. I've installed a 20 amp fuse and the charger is set at 20. There is a switch on the charger too. I'd like to mention that you can change the output amperage to from 10 amps to 20 amps. So we've put in a 20. My OCD is saying I put this fuse in straight, but this one, that's kind of weird. I forgot there's some upside down, upside right. We're just going to leave that. I'll get over it. So this goes to the output side. So that's going to be live all the time because that's hooked right through here to the through the 20 amp fuse right to the battery cable. So what we're going to do is back in here, we'll go back inside of here. This is our ground bar right here. Get a better picture of that. There we go. That's the ground bar. I'm going to hook my test light right to that ground bar. All right. So we're going to take our test light. We're going to check here. All right. We do have power here on the fuse. And we have power here and power to the lug. All right, so we know that's good. So now we're going to come over here. So let's make sure that we do have power to the Vevor. And we do. So we got a good connection there. Okay, so now we're on the other side. And here is the harness that runs. This is the wire that runs to the front of the camper to the harness for the trailer. So let's test that. That should have no power on it. There we go, we're on that. The test light is not lit. So that, when we hook to the truck, that should become live. So we have the loop wire, like we said, running to the DC input, which was to simulate like an ignition on, which will turn the charger on. So that is hooked up. And all right, so everything looks good there. And I just want to show you too. Here's the lights, power light and the arrow light, and neither one is lit, so the unit is not on. These are the dip switches also. I set them last night. I read the manual, and this is what I decided to run for the batteries that I have installed. I think I could go up to 14.6, but I'm running the middle one, so I should be fine right there. The alternator's not going to put out what this needs anyway, so at 14, I think it was 14.4. I could verify that, but when you look it up, you just need to know the type of batteries that you are using and what the recommended voltage is. So we're going to mount this. Well, we're going to clean up this wiring a little bit. I'm going to put some ties on these just to kind of hold them together like a harness. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to bring the truck around, not actually hook it to the camper, but we'll bring the truck around and we will run these batteries down a little bit, maybe run the TV off the inverter or something to that effect, and run the batteries down a little bit, and then plug the truck in and see what happens there. We'll monitor it on the app for the batteries and see how they're charging with the Vevor DC to DC charger in there, monitoring that. Okay, so we've put a couple of zip ties on here just to kind of keep the wires organized and where I want them to lay. So I did tie them up here, and I did put another tie back in here. So my goal here was to keep it where I can remove this unit if I need to and pull it out and have enough wiring to do so. And also when I put it in, it kind of keeps the wires together so they don't get tangled up in here. So what we're going to do now is I'm not going to install this just yet. I'm going to switch off the converter, which I can do in the circuit box here. If you remember, we have the wire right here into a circuit breaker that we added from the first video. And we're going to switch the converter off. We're going to turn the batteries on, switch the converter, and then try to run them down a little bit. And then we'll bring the tow vehicle around and hook it to the camper, and maybe not fully charge them because I don't want to let the truck run. Gas is getting a little expensive. So we will just confirm that it does work and let it run just a little bit, and then we'll let the batteries charge back off the converter. Alright, so we have the tow vehicle hooked up. We have the blue light. The power light is on, and the unit is not, there's no fans running or anything, so it's not overworking itself. There is a little warmth to the bottom, but not bad. So it looks like we have success. I've checked the app, and the batteries are showing they're charging. And as soon as I plugged it in to the truck, we got the blue light. So the idea that I had of that being the way to switch it on and off did work. I do have one concern though. We have a plug that goes into our trailer harness when we're at a campground, and we can flip a switch and it turns the camper lights on, like the clearance lights and the tail lights. It's kind of nice to have that, but with the way I just wired this up, that will no longer work. But that is something I can address in the future. I could actually wire that in here somehow and just feed power into the running lights, but that's another project for another day. It's not really important. So I will make I'm going to show you when I get this mounted inside there what the finished deal looks like, and we'll be back. We're going to shut the truck off. Gas is expensive, so we're not going to let that run and charge the batteries. We'll put it back on 110 with the converter. Alright, so you're going to hear a fan running. That's the converter, the one we installed on the first video. It's charging batteries right now. Like I said, I didn't want to leave the truck running to charge the battery. It gets a little pricey. So there it is installed back there. I have it mounted, put a piece of small piece of wood here to kind of level it out with the spacer. So we got that in there. I want to say that the batteries, I was very impressed running the inverter, the TV. I had a TV plugged in, a fan, all the lights on, trying to run the battery down a little bit. So usually with the lead acid batteries, you're going to see maybe 2.5 to 3 hours running that inverter with the TV, maybe 2 hours with the fan. And that was with the 2 lead acid batteries. And the inverter has a protection. It will shut down when it gets like 11.2 volts, somewhere in that neighborhood. So what I was seeing was on the battery app on my phone, when I was looking at how much it was drawing, and it was projecting like 15 hours of runtime for what I was pulling at that time. I don't know where I was at. Probably I don't recall what the app said, but definitely would have never made it that far on lead acid battery. So I'm happy with that. So if you found this helpful in any way, or it doesn't cost anything to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm not one of these guys that's going to make a video every week or every couple of days. If I'm doing something that's interesting, I might make a video of it. And the more people we get on the channel and subscribers, the more videos we can make. So I hope you found this useful. And until the next time, everybody have a great day.